looks like we are live. Yay! Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. We are back with the Artist Living Room on its 7th edition. We haven't been doing this for the past 2 weeks because the first because August has 5 weeks instead of 4. But anyway, so we're starting again this month in the region of the Americas today. And we have a few artists today who will be introducing themselves, and they are going to take part in the project that we have this month, an online concert project with the theme Embracing the Shadow. And we would like for you to get to know some of these people so that when the concert arrives, they're not complete strangers anymore. You've probably seen me before many times. My name is Valencia, and I'm sort of managing a lot of these behind the scenes. But without further ado, I would like to bring the first artist of the day, which is Sofia, who's based in Berlin right now. And I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Sofia Sarmento, and I'm from Portugal, and I'm being based in Berlin in the last 4 years. And I'm a performance artist. I've been working with the human body as my main focus and as my biggest tool of work. And I'm a dancer, a contemporary dancer, a contact improvisation dancer. I'm a choreographer as well. In the last years, I integrate voice in my work, and as a part of the body material expressivity. And this been developing in some kind of singing. I'm really interested in this place of intersection of different artistic areas. And occasionally I've been collaborating and working with video and installations in a way of putting my body in different contexts outside of the stage. Yes, and I would like to share some videos with you. And that these 3 videos, it's things that I've been working the last 2 months. So it's pretty fresh stuff. Okay, this comes on the pandemic and after the 3 months.
Trouble, hey you, hey you, a little trouble. I wanna float you, want to float it just tonight, oh just tonight, oh just tonight, oh just tonight, yeah, just tonight. I want you forget, I want you forget myself, little trouble. Just tonight, I want you forget, I want you forget myself. To rest my eyes on, to rest.
Okay, I'll stop here to show some other stuff. And this was a going to the nature in July. Wow, okay. And I will shortly just, or have a bit of ideas of different stuff. This was the last 2 months, and this yeah, this is only how that I'm working right now. And it's I'm working with standard or activity, and appropriating, embodying in my body this Western essential masculine symbol.
If you, Sophia, if you want to
Yeah.
talk, you need to stop the video and then talk because you were cutting out. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I have to stop this.
okay. Sound good? Okay. Thank you, Sophia. Next, we have Belinda, who's currently in near San Francisco, and she's a visual artist. So yeah, without further ado, Belinda, you can have the stage.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Belinda Chlouber, and I'm in San Mateo, California, it's about 20 miles south of San Francisco. And I'm a visual artist, and I've been working on the climate issues for really intensely now for about 5 years. Just using my artwork to raise awareness. And I did training with Al Gore for the Climate Reality Project, so on how to communicate with people about the climate issues. So let me put myself on speaker view. There, wait, whoops. I don't know how to get myself to be full screen.
Are you trying to share screen?
I can go ahead. Well, I was trying to get myself bigger, but let's see. So I can show you. I was going to show you some of my artwork in the back with the virtual background there. Okay, so just switch these behind me. So some of these pieces are details of artwork, and then I can show you some more this way. Okay. This is one of the pieces. Are you seeing it pretty well? Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of my recent pieces. Working on a series about endangered species and the effect climate change is having on them. And I also focus, a lot of my work is focused on animals, animal issues. And so this one I did in 2018, and it was kind of right before we had these really big fires last year. So it sort of freaked me out a little bit because I did this before the fires, and I was just, and it made me kind of, I don't know. And then I started seeing people walking around with gas masks, so that was really troubling. But this one is shoebill, Mattis Howe, and shoebill is an endangered species who looks really mad, so he was perfect for this piece. And this one is called Not Us. It was one of the first pieces that I did about this. This is, the black is kind of representing an oil spill, but just wanting it not to happen to us. So, and then this piece is called Breath of Color. Trying to breathe life back into the earth. And this piece is Sometimes Out of Chaos Comes Beauty. And that was one of the earlier pieces, because I do believe that sometimes out of chaos, we can, beautiful things can happen that wouldn't have happened without that chaos birthing it. So this piece is actually going to donating this afternoon to an auction for Kids for Art, which benefits kids with cancer in San Francisco. And I have dropped the piece off right after this. So I have a lot more pieces. The way I got into working on this was in 2011, when my mother passed away, and I started doing work with her poetry that we found. She was a writer. And this is one of my pieces called Whirlpool Stilled. And it's a piece that has encaustic in it and lettering. And I realized after working with her work that, and thinking about legacy and, you know, our own legacy as artists, as people, that it's not going to really matter if we don't have habitable earth. So that's when I started working on the climate issues a lot, because it's just that important. And this one is Lady of the Lake. It's one of my favorite pieces. It's about dragonflies, and it's the poem is about how dragonflies are so beautiful, but they're also very deadly. And so anyway, and then I've been playing with wanting to do stuff in Reality Composer, because I really like that application. And I'll show you a recent piece I did with that. This is so I'm gonna put the AR on artificial reality. And so this piece, oh, my cat. Okay, sorry. So I'm kind of working on trying to figure out how to incorporate artificial reality with the artwork and in performances online. So I think that's really exciting. I'm very happy about that. So get back to Zoom here. And I think that's about it. Cat scratched me. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Belinda.
Okay.
I think you need to click stop sharing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I think I was thinking that your gas mask piece reminded me of this video game called Machinarium. The style is very similar. I can send it your way, and I think you might find it sort of reminiscent. So next we have Daniel, whom some of you may be familiar with already. I'll let him introduce himself anyway.
Thank you, Valencia. And thank you, Belinda, and thank you, Sofia. My name is Daniel Berkman. I'm a multi-instrumentalist and composer. And I specialize in unique instruments, instruments of a peculiar nature or historical significance. A lot of the instruments I have are old and have quite a bit of history. And a lot of my instruments are new, which have no history whatsoever. So there's this sort of combination of sort of combining the past and the present and the future. But what I like to do is, I'm a live looper as well. So this is one way that I can combine these different textures together in unique and different ways, where there isn't this disconnect between the performer and the composer. Because I often find that sometimes I'm performing by day and at night I'm in my computer composing, and there's this sort of disconnect. So what looping does is it allows me to be an on-the-spot composer, where I can take what I've learned from performing and the inspiration I get from the instruments that I play, and putting them down on in a looper. And that's basically what composers do. You know, when they're sitting in front of their computer or their tablet or whatever, however they compose, they're improvising. They're creating something on the spot. But what we get is this elaboration of that. So one of the instruments that I specialize in is this instrument here. This is called the kora. It's a harp lute from West Africa. Has 21 strings, and I discovered this thing in the mid-90s, and I got my first kora in the mid-90s. So I've been playing for a few years. And this is what it sounds like. That's the kora. So it's one of the many instruments that I play. And that is, we don't want to destroy the kora. That's one of the instruments that sort of comes from the past. And it is of a peculiar nature. Not very many people have heard of it. And it has a tremendous historical significance. A lot of what we know of as blues, for instance, came from West Africa, which is where the kora was born. And also, it is similar to a banjo in the sense that it has a skin as a sound source, or as a sounding board, with strings on top. So it's sort of like an ancient version of a banjo. So you could see sort of how it's been pretty significant in terms of its unwitting influence on American culture. And as for instruments that have no history, that are new, that are innovative, that are being created in the now, I have this instrument here, which you probably can't see. Oh yeah, you can see it. This is the Roland Hand Sonic, and it's another instrument that I specialize in. It has hundreds of sounds. It has what they call Roland, they call supernatural technology, which has a very realistic sound. In fact, I've got a piano here, which is the RD700, which also has supernatural technology. And you could hear the piano sound, for instance, is just... I mean, it's like, it's just ridiculously real. So for instance, here on the Hand Sonic, we have a tabla. Which I've decided to pitch. I can pitch it however I want. I mean, that's the power we have here. So if I want to just like put some of this stuff together, I could show you how I loop. We got a little looper right here, the RC200, and just away we go. Just creating something, composing something in real time. Maybe add a little piano. So just an example of what I do. And I don't know if I mentioned, I'm from San Francisco, 20 miles north of Belinda. Anyway, thank you so much, and thank you, Valencia. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ejuku. Is that, yeah, okay.
Greetings, 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 people of the world. The name my mother gave me is Ejuku. Still using the same one. I haven't changed yet. I am a percussionist or a drummer. I beat things for a living. I love the creation of art, creation and enjoyment of making it. I also love and represent culture everywhere I go. It's one of the things that I am very passionate about. It's a combination of culture and drums, plus a little bit of psychology, or a lot of psychology, to bring me to the few things that I appreciate, which is mostly sound and some extent through mental health. And being able to share these or put these things across is one of the things that I'm really happy and contented to be able to do. Yeah, I dabble in theater production and a bit of singing, dancing. It comes really easy because of the base structure that I've already set up. So I might as well just explore the different sides that I already have, or the different types of art forms that are available to be able to express myself. Poetry is also in there, so some words. Sometimes I cannot explain everything using the too many sounds in my head, so I might as well choose a few words just to share that as an attribute. Yeah, and individually, I've been going through. I'm now living in Sao Paulo. I'm originally from Uganda, and yeah, I'm trying to make a new home. Or we are being at home in Sao Paulo, and the COVID-19 just kind of made things easier, I guess, to just stay in one place and not have to move. But I think one of the things that sticks with me is my mom said I was licked by a black dog at some point, so I can never stay still or stand in the same location for way too long. So it's one of those. But I guess I've managed to stay put for 9 months. So yay. Yeah, this this project has been one of those that I've really resonated with in a way that came in handy over having all this time seated and trying to figure out which angle we're going to go with, especially with the new normal. And it didn't really fit into the narrative, or my own narrative, or whatever narrative people have set up out there. And going through my day-to-day, usual, everyday life, I got triggered, or I got my third eye got opened. It came to a point of anger and frustration on just the simplest, say, representation of culture, translation of it, how it's being executed and how it's being visible, how I've played into it, and being able to perpetuate it, to continue a vicious cycle that just doesn't give a little bit of groundation, and so like the direction of, say, how I make art, or what we do is maybe do art for a targeted audience. It's like, yeah, let me claim to target this audience. It's like, okay, because this is where I'm going to be able to get the money, and this is where I'm going to be able to get the bread to continue surviving. And I think along the way, before I came onto a personal journey as an artist, I had these principles set in clear stone: why I had to play, how I have to play, who I'm going to be playing with and collaborate with. But along the way, between so many different collaborations and experiences, the initial goal just becomes foggy, and you kind of just find a way of surviving and moving through. And time just goes just like that, and you don't really see it until you have some downtime to think a little bit and what I'm trying to play. So when I saw this call, I was really intrigued, because I was like, okay, well, this is I think I can resonate with dealing with my shadows, because I have and just hovering them and waiting for that time, and never waiting for that time. And the triggers could have been something so small and something so out of nowhere, but it led me into a new direction, which I'm very fond of and really interested to indulge in as an artist. And one of these concepts was being able to understand my culture, but also translate it to my now. So I'm not took the anger and cooked it up into a solution, or find a progress point that, this is something I can reach out to. And so if I respond to this anger with a solution, then I am actually addressing my frustrations. And for me, that just stood out. So being able to share this with all these brilliant artists that have come to meet the last few weeks has been really, really decent. And like, everyone has a different translation, but the point is there, it's like there's a clear view onto it, which is priceless. It brings some light into my day-to-day life, and being able to, like, well, back then it's like, you feel like, oh man, just drumming. Okay, I'll just do it. I enjoy it. I want to do it. But now I want to leave an impact, or I want to leave a solution that creates something. So I came up with an artist structure, or a platform that I'm working with to produce slowly with time. It's called ALR, which is the fireplace, and we use this as a concept back where I come from, from our elders and family members and community. We come and sit together and share wisdom, love, laughter, food, drink, and around the fireplace. And this is something that, well, in person, we might not have a fireplace, set up, but how about if we take it a little bit further and bring the fireplace to an online virtual occasion? And in so doing, the type of questions that came to my mind were some of the basic structures that I want to share with the world. And one of them is mental planet. It sucks, but yeah, it's our planet, and we're definitely responsible for it. I have a love for art, so that just doesn't just fit in directly, because I might as well just explore all the angles and the arenas art has to offer. I have a thing for African philosophy and proverbs. These are things that we haven't really built on, because there's so many philosophies that have come up that have seen the day of light, and yet the wisdom and knowledge that is in Africa has been just dwindled down, and it hasn't seen the day of light. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to be that kind of person who is going to share some light into that, and just and make it grow, because, well, we believe in the Socrates and all these other different philosophies, and we really use them in our day-to-day lives. But in After Sense, it's a different tale, or different. They do not relate to me, because one, my language also just has different explanations and metaphors, which I cannot translate in English. If I tried translating it in English, it just doesn't make any grammatical sense at all. And that's just something I want to be able to explore. So with all this, I feel like, the last part about it is the sustainability part, which is something that is really strong. If I want it to last, I need to make sure that it stays the taste of time and is also appreciated by everyone. Besides sustainability, I also want that inclusion, because, well, we have to, we have to be able to see color, to not see color at the end of the day, because why not? And if you're locked into one small box that says, hey, I will not see color, or hey, I'm seeing color, then you're never gonna be a progressive community or society altogether. So taking a foot forward to be like, yes, I will be inclusive, and I would like to open this up to everyone and anyone, because, well, we are all human beings. At the end of the day, we have to die. So we have the same end game. The journey is just different. So I might as well just make it something worth my while and my time while I'm doing it. And yeah, I used to share that with some drum circles back in the day, and these are things I'd like to be able, you know, to interchange and share. So that's everything Ejuku has to do or say.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm just kind of contemplating on how each of you have made such different presentations. Like Sofia showed us some dance, Belinda showed us some visual arts, Daniel showed us how to improvise and compose music on the spot, and Ejuku went on a mental health, philosophy, and art sort of soup, like everything. And I think it's fascinating, all the different like approaches to art and what you find important. And I think that I really enjoy people who have something that's important for them, that's consistent. You know, it's not because like, oh yeah, my dad says this is important, therefore it's important. No, it's important for you, and it's consistent throughout your life. Like for Ejuku, it's mental health. For Belinda, it's climate issues. You know, I like these things. And so I would just, I think Ejuku kind of touched on this a little bit, but the theme of the project we have coming up is embracing the shadow, which I kind of feel is really relevant to this time when our collective humanity is undergoing such massive, rapid changes on both the individual and the collective levels. And I kind of feel like embracing the shadow and getting to know your shadow is one of the most important things that we can do to integrate, to become a well-integrated person, so that you can transform and kind of lean into the discomfort of changing instead of being stuck in the comfort of staying the same. And we've kind of spent the past weeks just kind of getting to know each other, having online meetings, which are tricky to organize with such an international group. But I think we are creating something really experimental with all the cross-section of different art forms meeting each other. And it's kind of exciting how that's forming up. But I want to just take a little bit of time to hear from each of you about the theme, what it means to you, how it resonates with you, and why, what drew you to this project. And I know that Belinda might have to leave to some other appointment after this, so I will let her speak first.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, this is a theme that I've thought a lot about, because the climate issue is very much focusing on our shadow side. And I think sometimes when you have a problem, you have to know the problem. You have to run to the problem. You can't run away from it or it chases you. So I think with me and the climate issues, I kind of ran toward the problem so I could understand it. But it definitely is our shadow side, the shadow side of humans, the side we don't want to look at, and think about, or deal with. And people just want to deny it. And I can understand that. I'd like to deny it if it wasn't happening outside my door right now with all the fires we have here. So I can show you one piece that I really thought this is an earlier piece, and it really, I thought really kind of talks about the shadow, thinks of the shadow side. This piece is, move out of the way. You see the shadow on the one side of the person. And she's holding a globe in her hands. And that was one of my earliest thinkings of the shadow. And that was, I think that was probably 2017 maybe that I did that piece. So the shadows do figure a lot into my thinking and my work. So I love the theme.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited because I would like to see how visual arts gets incorporated into a performative setting, you know, and to see what are the possibilities that we have with that. And I think you've been so full of very innovative ideas with like apps that I've never even heard about before, you know, and in a way, like normally the younger generation should be the more like tech savvy ones, but I feel like you're more tech savvy than me.
No, I don't know. We're all adapting at the same time to kind of a new reality. So it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, we have to adapt to this.
And I kind of was curious about what you mentioned earlier when you were showing your art. You mentioned that dragonflies are really deadly. And I'm curious what makes them deadly, because I didn't know that they are deadly. So I think,
well, you know, I didn't know that either until I read my mother's poem. You know, my mother's poem talks about it. They're just really good at capturing prey. You know, that's what they do, and they're just really, really good at it. I don't know. I could read the poem, but I'd have to go find it.
Is it so they're not deadly to us then?
No.
Okay, that's what I was like. They're deadly. Oh no.
No. I've been noticing a lot more dragonflies.
I was nervous
when I go up there. No, they're not. Yeah.
I think dragons can be deadly to us, but not dragonflies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how, I guess, since you feel personal significance to this theme, how has, in a sense, you know, we started beginning to have these meetings with the artists about, let's say 2 weeks ago, I would say, I think 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I think about 2 weeks ago. So it's still kind of in the early stages, but how has that notion developed, the idea of the shadow, like how has that developed in this time as you talk to different people and sort of listen to how they interpret the shadow and things like that? How has that have your ideas about
transformed?
It? Yeah.
Well, I started thinking a lot more, you know, that the technology is, you know, is a challenge. You have to kind of learn these things. So it's very steep curve in that way. I come from a background as a graphic artist too. So I've done a lot of graphic design work. So I know the computers and I know the software and I know this, but it's really advancing so rapidly now, and it's such a pace that there's ways to do things that can be really easy, but then there's also ways to do things that can be really hard. So like, unless you kind of research it and figure out the easy way to do it, you can spend all your time trying to figure out the technology. So, because it's just changing so quickly.
Yeah, and how do you see the shadow theme linking to your existing general interest in the climate issues?
Well, that's a kind of a hard question. It's I think of all the things that are happening with the climate kind of as a shadow of what we've done in the past. It's like what we've done in the past has cast this shadow on the future. And we're living in that shadow now from these things, because the carbon stays in the atmosphere for a long time and the gases stay in the atmosphere. So what we're experiencing is we're in the shadow of that path of what's gone on, what people have done in the past. It can stay in the atmosphere for 100 years or more. I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of gases, but it's definitely, we're living in the shadow now of past what people have done.
That's kind of an interesting take on the shadow as a consequence.
Yeah, consequences. I think we maybe didn't learn consequences too well when we were children, perhaps. I don't know.
It kind of stays with you, right? Like you have no choice. The shadow stays with you. You can't really run away from it.
Your
right?
shadow is part of you.
Yeah, it stays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what time exactly you need to leave. If at any point you need to drop out, feel free.
Okay.
We'll just continue. This is why I wanted to make sure that we have some conversation time before you go.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, but Sophia, I would like to hear your thoughts on the shadow, how you feel connected to it, what drew you to this project, and yeah, just any reflections about the theme
Yeah,
that you care to share.
yeah. As the first conversation that we had, Valencia, I mentioned that to you. I kind of feel that I've been working in shadow all my life, actually, but I never call it that because I'm really interested in the body as a place of contradiction, in a place of friction. I'm really interested with this, like you really can want something and not wanting at the same time. And as, I mean, right?
It's like a paradox, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in this contradiction, this friction, places in the body, talking as a performer, as a, yeah, a dancer. And I'm really interested also in the conscient, in everything that it's discomfortable, in the ugly. Somehow I'm attracted to face the fear, to face the things that actually doesn't feel so attracted by, but I always in my life with my work, I felt this need to find in my work this place to watch that, to face that. And I never use the word shadow. So yeah, somehow this resonates a lot with me. The first thought that I had about the shadow, for me, it's interesting that the shadow comes just by the presence of the light. So it's the shadow kind of appears as a symbol of the opposite, the oppositions, a meeting point, and that's interesting for me.
Yeah, just a little break there because I just got reminded of what Belinda said. When we started getting locked in, the shadows disappeared. I think, I don't know if you could, if you remember what you said in that meeting, because I found that really fascinating. And it kind of linked into what Sophia just mentioned. Belinda, you're on mute.
Yeah, that's true. In shelter in place and locked down or locked in, we don't have our shadows with us. They're not here. So, yeah.
Yeah, because like when you walk outside in the sun, you know, you see your shadow in front of you or behind you, depending, you know, it usually can be quite stark. But when you're indoors, it's not as intense, you know. And as Sophia mentioned, the presence of the light creates the shadow, and it becomes this meeting point between the light and the dark. And I saw this quote not long ago where, you know, the shadow kind of disappears in the dark, but then I can't remember exactly, but yeah, basically like it's non-existent in the dark, and it can only be created in the presence of light. So it's kind of this midpoint between the two. Yeah, anyway, sorry, Sophia, I was just interjecting.
But yeah, I think it's pretty much that. Lately, talking about, I'm also working with words and spoken word and singing, and lately I'm working with these kind of songs. They appear in the end, they arrive as songs, was not the will. But the name, it's Dark Mantras, and it's pretty much it's pretty much this. So the mantra, that it's something that comes and comes and that heals you. And I feel I gave the dark mantra because I feel that it's a pretty dark thoughts, dark imaginary, that somehow through the repetition of letting come and letting come, they vanish. I don't know. Sharing that this is also something that I'm being interested in. I do feel really connected with the shadow work.
Yeah, bye, Belinda. Thank you so much for your time and being with us. Yeah, and sorry, Sophia, you were saying something about the dark matter. Was that what you were saying? Yeah.
Dark mantras.
Mantras?
Yeah, dark mantras.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
It's project that I'm being working right now, and I do feel I started before that I joined the group, but I do feel that it's also connected, and it's a really shadow work as well. Yeah.
What dark mantras are these, and where do they come from?
They start as poetry, and I pretty much write in a way that it's for being spoken. So they suddenly start to be a spoken word, and now they are songs. They become, through the speaking, becoming more singable. Yeah, and now I'm putting this together. They are a couple of songs, 8, 9 songs.
Cool. It kind of reminded me of what I read not a long, Ejuku. Sorry, I just had to laugh at what you just wrote. But anyway, I was reminded of what I read about how the masculine feminine polarities and how typically the masculine is connected to the light and the feminine with the dark. And what's been happening with the patriarchal society we have over glorified the light and didn't want to look at the dark. We suppressed the dark as we suppress the feminine as everything else. And we think the dark is evil, you know? But both of them are needed to have a balanced human being and human society, you know? So I found that very interesting when I connect all of that with the feminine, masculine, dark, and light, where if we all just want to be light and we forget the dark, then we are not integrated, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think this was linking a little bit to your Holy Cow project with the masculinity.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, it's that polarities. No, we're talking about polarities that in the end, I mean, I guess we made it as polarities for understand them, and we make it as contrast for understand them, but a lot of times they intersect and they are not that clear, but we need to define everything in a way that makes really distinct, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll just now ask Daniel, what are your thoughts and reflections on the theme, the shadow? Anything you would like to share?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like it's like a choose your metaphor sort of experience here. It's like, how many ways can we think of the shadow, you know? And I remember it was either the last artist living room or the one before that I was in, and what came up for me was this realization that for many years I've been a sort of shadow artist, you know, like doing music for dancers or doing music for film or being the guitarist for so and so or playing, you know, always and more often than not doing something for others rather than for myself and showing my true light, right? So that was kind of what I came up with then, and I thought it was very interesting what you were saying, Sophia, about shadow and light being a sort of meeting place, and then Valencia, you mentioned the masculine and feminine, which they're all wonderful. I love both of those. Are really great ways of embracing the shadow in a significant way. But what came up for me, and also what Belinda was saying, what came up for me, because it seems like, and I came up with me being a shadow artist at the, I mean, it's come up in the past, but it came up, that idea, I was reminded of it during the artist living room. But what came up for me just now is that the shadow is actually a signifier of life itself. Because without life, without existence, there is no shadow. There's nothing to cast a shadow on. So if I did not exist, there will be no shadow. So in a sense, like the shadow just is saying this thing exists, this thing is alive, even if it's inanimate. Like I was thinking of like moons casting shadows on its planet that it orbits around. Who knows if that moon is a living thing? You know, it might be geologically active, which could be a sign of life. You know, it has heat, it has energy. So yeah, that to me is another thing. So anything you create casts a shadow. If I even create a piece of music, it casts a shadow. Like people either like it or they don't like it, or it causes, you know, people to, you know, react a certain way. That is in a sense casting a shadow. But if I didn't put that song out into the world, it wouldn't cast anything. So in essence, the shadow is a signifier of something that exists. It's a signifier of our very existence.
Yeah, I was reading a very interesting material a few months ago about in this dualistic existence that we have, anything always has an opposite, right? So going back to polarities, with life you have death, with light you have dark. You can't really have one without the other, because we kind of live in this dimension where duality is one of the guiding principles of the existence that we have. And I think one of the things that we are trying to learn is how to transcend that duality. And in order to transcend it, we need to have both. We need to be dualistic. We need to not be one or the other. We need to be both. And I think it's that fascination with how can you be light and dark at the same time? How can you love both the light and the dark? Because I think our culture and society, as I mentioned, put such emphasis on the light. There's so much like hero worship and like you need to be this noble, virtuous, everything. And it kind of puts, like if you have a seesaw, it's kind of tilted all the way to one side, you know? And I think now we are witnessing a balancing act with the divine feminine sort of rising. You know, I think there's a lot of that, not just in the women, but also in the men, you know? Sophia, are you saying something? Wanting to say something?
I'm just applauding the divine feminine rising.
The divine feminine.
Revolution.
Yeah, and like, you know, men who don't embrace the divine feminine are becoming obviously out of balance, you know, because more and more men are awakening to the divine feminine and kind of integrating the masculine with the feminine. And so I like, at least for me, like when this masculine feminine spectrum is out of balance, like they're just not attractive to me. Like I'm not even interested to talk to them, you know? So I think, and likewise with the women, like if they have a underdeveloped masculine side, then they have an overly emphasized feminine side and it's out of balance. It's also not fascinating, you know, like, and I think we are coming more and more within the individuals to be integrated. Yeah. And I was just, I didn't get the time to comment earlier, but Daniel, I think what you just, the music showcase you did today, I think like every single time you should just do it that way, like with the build up. Like I really enjoyed watching the like more instruments coming, you know, I like coming to life, because normally when you play, it's just like, yeah, it's just Daniel doing his music, but I feel like this time you kind of show how it's done, and I'm like, wow, like it's like you see more candies being offered on the table, like wow, you know, like anyways.
Just casting just layers and layers of shadows on the looper.
Yeah. So that was such a delight, so thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You just turned me into a fangirl once again.
Yay!
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 Yeah. So since like we've gone a circle, so like Ejuku, you've touched a little bit on this during your introduction, but if you want to share something about how this project resonates with you, and your personal thoughts on the shadow, and maybe what you hope to achieve with whatever you create in this project.
Like I've always been fascinated ever since I came across it while I was still in school back then, was the theory of change and how it orchestrates and grows into us in a way that if you want it, you can address it. If you don't want it, it will fail you. And once the change happens, it either takes some people with themselves or it doesn't, you know. And this, from a mental health perspective, has contributed so much to the frustrations people have in dealing with their frustrations and mental health issues, because it's mostly a build-up of, say, different parts. So the more you layer it up, the more you not address it, you just layer it up. So you find that you are faced with the point of crashing. You're faced with the point of where you have to crash, and then you're looking out to someone to maybe help you address. And if anyone has had in therapy sessions, the one thing you're gonna have to is gonna go back and dwell and dig through all the frustrations and the pain that you have been having. So just like that theory of change comes into play because of the depth it carries. Because if I know your past, then the prediction would be, okay, maybe let's do something to change what your day-to-day looks like. So right, so if you're let's do this, and slowly by slowly you start to actually get on board with the picture or with the new era. So it just plays into simplicities, like when you see how feminism came into play and how it has grown and how it's still going, you see the difference between it. Because, well, if you don't accept change, or if you cannot see change, if you cannot work around change, then you're going to be stuck in this, and people are going to go ahead. They're going to leave you behind, and if you can't match up, then you're not. And the same interaction comes into, say, when you're looping and you're playing. It's track after track, so you're building the groundwork of something on the spot. So being able to utilize those elements, which is something I've been able to have as I played drums or I played patterns. It was like, well, we can do a rehearsal, no doubt. I can nail it to the T, to just what we rehearsed. But where's the fun in that? You know, as a live artist, I have found out that yes, and I'm gonna a little bit of spice in here, some paprika in there, a little bit of that. We'll just make the flow beautiful. And there's this element of unknown, because we are faced with the uncertainties of this world, and being able to be open to change just makes you fit in comfortably. It's like not like, it just allows you to move through smoothly without the drive of what should I expect or how should I do this. But like, this is for me a basis of how I deal with shadows and come to understand shadows, because then after I've understood that, addressing them is pretty spot on, because then I can see the light. You know, I am responsible for the light. Daniel, you said sometime what we wanted to do or make sound of a shadow, you know, and I was like, this is quite interesting. It's like no one really thought about it. It's like, well, if I played some of my drums, I guess the shadow would be watching other people dance to that sound. So it's like, well, it is in the part. It's something I played in the current, but the effects still linger, and they kind of expect you to keep going with that same rhythm, so that yay, you can still hit that place. Or when you're waiting for that drop to drop, and you're like, yeah, and then it doesn't drop it. It's like, oh, you know, you get like, there's that effect based on creation, which is something I am very I'm very passionate about, understanding it, and just having a clear conscience about change. And so I never wanted to limit myself. It was like this pandemic caused a bunch of changes in people's lives, and if you're not willing to get on board, then you're left behind. If not, yeah, it's okay. You can be there. We'll find you, or not, or never. But like, there's always change happening. And if the sun comes out every day, hey, why not change every day? It's just basic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Daniel, or your?
Sure. I mean, I was just, gosh, I had a couple things in my mind, and then it just went poof.
It became shadows.
Something about shadows, I think. I don't know. I think something about. I was thinking about, we were talking about change and accepting change and that, and I was thinking about like the political climate right now and how there's this divide and people aren't wanting to listen to each other's side, and that is the shadow right there. When someone says, pro-Trump this or anti-Trump that, that's casting a shadow right there. What if we freaking embrace the shadow? Like, just listen to one another. And listening, to me, is the ultimate feminine act. Can you just listen?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's like, so, and that's an opening. Like, when you feel that somebody's listening, it's like, okay, I can hear you. I can accept that. I might not agree with it, but I can accept it. Right? So anyway, yeah, that inspired me to think of that, Ejuku. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in the same way that light casts, like an object that has the light, then the shadow is cast there. I think what Daniel just mentioned, you are projecting your shadow on the other person that you're not willing to listen to somehow, So you are actually creating a shadow of you on the person that you're talking to. And I think if we operate under the premise that your reality is a reflection of what's inside of you, so like your external world is a reflection of your internal world. One really beautiful analogy that's always stuck with me is that, if you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, the thing you need to do is to be what you want to see, because if you're frowning and you're not enjoying the reflection of you frowning, and you want your reflection to smile, you need to smile. So you need to smile first. The reflection is not going to change unless you change first. So in that sense where, what you project out is really a reflection of what you have in here. And I think what Daniel was talking about with all this projection, which, I see every day. I think social media has become like a massive dumping ground of all the shadow projections you can think of. Like, it's... and I think people feel somehow less personal with, writing. So they feel they can just say whatever they want. Whereas if they talk in a conversation, maybe it wouldn't be so similar, not exactly the same, and which is also why I feel this theme is so relevant, because when you have so much shadow being projected out in like your Facebook feed, and it then triggers you, like if you're not careful and if you're not able to really take responsibility of your own shadow, those things will affect you and will kind of dampen your energy. And it's kind of important to be able to be present when somebody's projecting their shadow on you, so that you don't project your shadow back at them, and it becomes a projection war, and it becomes a conflict. Because if they project your shadow on you, but you have this strong energetic shield where you're like, hell no, I'm not taking that in, bounce back at you. Usually it deflates it, the other person usually becomes like calmer, especially if you are able to take in their negativity and return it with love, which I think is the ultimate challenge that we are all in right now. How do we take in anger, negativity, frustration, fear, blah, 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 and just be kind, even if the other person is not being kind, because somebody has to make that first step to be kind. Anyway, rambling. Sophia, any thoughts, comments, or whoever wants to chime in?
And I think there's a concept that, like, at some point now we're battling people's opinions and not facts anymore. So it's mostly just, this is what I have to say, take it or leave it. And I don't care if it's true or wrong. It's just like, yeah, no, this is how we will live it. And then it just reminded me of one of my mates in high school back in the day. Someone really got to him, and it was really clear that this guy is gonna blow up. And he, as he flipped his finger, he flipped one of these ones here, and he's like, "Mother lover," and we all like, "Oh, buddy, you just iced it to the top, like." All that anger was doused into, like, yeah, no, let me just give you some love. I think you can use some of that love for sure. And I feel like that's always been my takeout for it. Like, all right, you get to me, I might as well just wish you some good love. I know you love your mom, so yeah, let's go with it. And the face of the guy, the response face is like, no, you did. Oh, okay, all right, okay, I'll take it. So like,
Sophia, if you, yeah.
No, I mean, while you're talking, Valencia, what just comes to my mind, no, for sure, like practice kindness, for sure, I do agree. But I do have a hard time practicing kindness with somebody that it's against my existence, for example, talking that I'm a LGBT person, or, that for me, it's really difficult. Like when the standing point of that person, it's against your existence. And there I question if kindness is a strategy, but it's still, but still the question.
Can I add to that? I
Of
guess
course.
that requires like radical kindness. Which is like, or like Buddhist kindness, like kindness that requires like a lifetime of like working on this shit. Because like, excuse my French, because there are people like that who are so mean and vindictive and taken over by anger and whatnot that that they have to deny the existence of people, deny the existence of life itself. And that to me is like, I remember the day before 9/11. I went to see a lama who was giving a lecture just a few blocks away from my house when I used to live in San Rafael, and it was great. Literally the night before 9/11, and he was of course he was talking about compassion. This is Tibetan Buddhism, and he was talking about having compassion for everyone, and he was saying himself as a Tibetan to say that means even having compassion for the Chinese, which, who've been serious oppressors of Tibet for many years. And to hear that coming from him, I was like, wow, how do you do that? Like, that's like cultivating compassion, cultivating even to people who oppress you. And then, of course, the next day, 9/11 happened, and it was like, wow. But yeah, there's radical kindness, radical acceptance, like, because part of the Buddhist tradition is just understanding that we are all one. We're all living. We're all sentient beings, and just namaste. The spirit in me recognizes the spirit in you. However you want to look at it. So yeah, to answer your question or to respond to you, that it's like one way to approach that is just to like radical kindness.
Yeah, I think.
Last resort.
So, for me, I think. Sorry. Yeah.
I know it just made me think of the Rastafari creed. I don't like the boxers. I think I'm the only boxer in Ejuku box, so I do that. But there's that Rastafari creed that, peace and happiness, just give love and blessing. And even it was like, yeah, even the counterpart situation where you just cannot receive. I think also there's this inner standing of giving love back to yourself other than giving it out to other people. So this inner standing and overstanding of the love that you share you should actually contribute mostly towards yourself, because once you get that, it just parts, from the frustrations around you and surroundings. Because if you love yourself and you're like, it's something you just don't care, like I'm at peace and laugh, but you're gone, And so
Yeah.
that,
I think for me, at least how I look at it is when you come to a point where, the validity of you and your existence is independent of how other people validate it. So in that sense, even if they deny your existence based on a certain identifier that you feel you identify with, their lack of validation of that doesn't change your own sense of validity of that identity. And in that sense, it doesn't matter like what their denial or validation makes no difference. And what I found is they probably have a lot of judgment and anger probably towards themselves, because I always believe that whatever you project out is something that you also do towards yourself. So what I found is when people are really angry or being very full of vitriol towards me, if I say just thank you, usually they get even more angry. That's usually the first reaction, because they're like, how can you thank me for being angry and saying like all sorts of nasty things at you, like why would you thank me for that? Like it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, I think it also feels like when people are angry and you don't respond with that same energy, it's like suddenly their anger feels invalid, like it just deflates because you're not fueling that further. So they suddenly feel lost, like, wait, what? And then if they want to be angry, they'll be angry at you for not allowing them to be more angry, because they want to be angry. And some people, like I think Daniel, you're like, I just want to be mad. You're saying that a few times, like some people just want to be mad. And then
I'd rather be mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
in response to like, anyway,
yeah, so I think it's kind of beautiful when you're able to just like thank people for being nasty. Like I think it's kind of contradictory to what you would think makes sense, but I think it helps to diffuse that, to end the vicious cycle of passing on the bad energy on and on and on. Stop the cycle where it is, and move on. So we are probably should be ending soon. So any last comments, thoughts? Let's say another 3 to 5 minutes before we call it a night, day.
Yeah, I guess the next step is like, how do we take all this philosophy around this idea of shadow and put it into art? How does that happen? And as a musician, for me, it's like, okay, it's almost like when a filmmaker or something is like, well, Daniel, we want this music to be, we want shadows in the music. How as a musician, how do I interpret shadow, right? And so I don't know. I just realized we're actually working towards some sort of concert kind of experience thing, and so. Anyway, I guess I'm bringing it back down to the creative process and the upcoming concert and whatnot. And I'm still grappling with this idea of, well, okay, what do I do to contribute to this idea of embracing the shadow? And I'm just kind of putting that out there to like bring things back down to like the artistic process as opposed to just a philosophy.
Daniel, I think one, it's like, well, the pick out would be you should lead a piece track of yourself, because it's the interaction that you've been having has been shadowing other artists and being able to shadow. Like maybe your contribution will be like, yes, I will pave the way for my own shadow. So like I will create the path and maybe let other people come on. and follow. But I think as a transient way, you could, have full control of your own of the production, which I so much admire the morning 10 a.m. Kora juices that you just keep on. Really, really beautiful to be able to experience. And yeah, as personally, I didn't really throw away, but I managed to close most of my old notebooks with all the structures that I had, so that I can create something new, like just be able to embrace my frustrations. So in a sense, I have grouped it down to achievable angles or achievable ways to project my art, in the sense that I can also address my own frustrations and shadows that I've been keeping to myself. So in a way, I'm trying to marry those things together and create something, Sofia, man, you gotta stand strong. Like, you gotta stand your ground and be like, dude, that's a you problem. It's not a me problem. Go deal with your frustrations.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes these people, it's presidents.
Right?
It's what?
Sometimes these people are leaders and presidents, and I mean, sometimes it's law as well. I mean, sometimes I'm not just talking with individuals, like it's a system.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's true. It's like, and thank you to remember me that really, I sometimes but it's radical kindness.
It is radical kindness.
And radical in the way that it's from the roots, right? The root of kindness. Yeah. I'm really sorry, but I really need to go because I need to wake up at 7 and it's midnight, I think now.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we didn't intend for this to take this long, but yeah.
Was really lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sofia.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you also to Daniel and Ejuku for your time, for all your thoughts and contributions and all the things you've shared. The concert will be, I'm very curious what form it's going to take, because there are so many possibilities and so many different thoughts and art forms. And yeah, anyway, so next week we will have another set of artists, this time more from Africa and Europe, and we'll be introducing more of them. And the concerts will be happening at the end of September. So yeah, thank you everyone, and see you next week. Yeah, so I'm gonna
Thank you, Valencia. Thank you, Ejuku.
Yay!
Thank you.